Hi, Tony here again. And if you haven't checked out my other video, please do so. It's called You, Yes You Can Bring Peace to This World. It's the story of Fatima, and my channel is called Faith of Our Fathers. I've enlisted the help of my grandson as far as putting these videos together and then getting them on the internet. He was very instrumental in doing the last one. And he told me I need to hurry up and get another video out. But the way I do these videos is I do a lot of research. So I might have to read a couple of books, internet, and then compile all the data down to a story form that is precisely what was said by the person that said it, not my own rendition, but exactly what was said. So it takes quite a bit of time. But the next project is called Garabandal, and it's a very intense story. But anyhow, me and my grandson went to the gym the other day, and I decided to tell him why I am the way I am and how I've become obsessed with spreading devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And I told him the story of everything that's happened, and he really liked it. And he said, well, that's a video, use that. So that's what I'm going to do. I thought about it, and he is right. So I'm going to share with you and my family and friends who think I've went off the deep end why I am the way I am and what's happened and what's changed me. I got some notes here. I'm going to try to have to refer to them because I can't seem to remember much of anything these days. I told my doctor about it, and he told me if it gets much worse that we'd have to do something. I told him if it gets much worse, I won't be able to find my way in here. But anyhow, sometimes when I tell the story, I get emotional, so I'll try not to do that, but forgive me if I do, but it just happens sometimes. I get a lump in my throat. You know how it is. But it all began a few years ago. A very good friend of mine, he was like 75 years old. His name was Pappy. And he was just a great person. I mean, he was a poor man, but he's the kind of guy that would literally give you the shirt off his back. He lived a few miles here from me. I've known him for years. And he has a million stories, and I just love listening to his stories. I mean, he could be a cartoon character. He really could. He's so funny. But anyhow, he contracted cancer about 5 years ago. And the last 2 years of it were absolutely grueling. And if you've ever helped someone that is dying with cancer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a very slow, painful death, and it's extremely hard to watch. I remember asking Pappy one time, Pappy, are you afraid of dying? He said, Tony, I'm afraid I won't die. That's how bad it was. So anyhow, Pappy had a lot of friends, but the worse he got, the less people would come down and see him. So I found myself going down there more and more, helping with this or that, and then it became a routine. And I would split my time with going to see him and my mother, who she lived at the family farm by herself since my father had passed away. She was extremely lonely, but she had a very good social life. She was a pistol. She was a lot of fun, full of energy. And I would stop at Pappy's, then I would go see my mom. She would complain about her loneliness, but she had a better social life than I have. About me, I was raised Catholic, but I fell away from the church. And then a few years ago, I started easing my way back in. I'd been reading the Bible for years. I always read one chapter in the morning, and that's how I start my day. I always think that feed your soul with the Word of God before you feed your body. So anyhow, between helping Pappy and my mother, and it just started coming into my mind, what is the deal about Virgin Mary? I had read the stories in the Bible, but I really didn't know why Catholics held Virgin Mary in such high regard. I mean, I know she's the mother of our Lord, wonderful person, but I didn't know. And I didn't know anything about the rosary. I had participated in saying the rosary like at a funeral or during a mass, and it was just like singing a song that you really don't know the words to except the chorus. I would jump in there every now and again of the words of the prayers I knew and then kind of mumble through the rest. I just knew it was a very long prayer, and I had no idea what the significance of the beads meant. So, as I'm thinking about this, and at the time I'm doing online auctions, and there's this 3-foot statue of the Virgin Mary, the Lady of Guadalupe, and nobody bid on it. I bid a nickel, 5 cents, and I got it. So I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I brought it home. And at the time, me and my wife were separated, since divorce, but we were separated, and she was living with her mother's over at Crescent Springs. And I went over there one Sunday to visit, and we decided to go to church, to St. Joseph's. And when we went to church, they were having a missionary there that had just come back from the Holy Land. And they gave their talk, and then after church, they had all kind of crafts that they had made out of wood that had come from the Holy Land. So, after church, I went and looked at their stuff, and there was one rosary there, a wooden rosary. I'm like, wow, I was been thinking about a rosary. So I bought it, and I took it home, and I Googled rosary, how you say it, and what's it about. So I started practicing it now and again whenever I had time, or I would think of it. And at first it seems like it's very complicated, but in reality it's really not. It's just a series of successive prayers, and the meditation is meditate on different events in the life of Christ, of the Virgin Mother, on different days of the week. So before long I was kind of doing it, and partially on my own. But one day I went down to visit Pappy, and he lived in a mobile home, and it was in summertime, and it was dreadfully hot. And when I went in there, he was in his back bedroom laying on his bed, and he was just moaning and groaning. He was so much pain. He's like, oh, Tony, make it stop, do something. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, you know. And Pappy also had this great big old dog he called Baby. And Baby would just usually sleep in the corner until it was time to eat, and meander over to the bowl, eat, and then go back and sleep in the corner. Pappy also had every cat in the neighborhood that didn't have a home. I think he had 20 of them. He had a great heart that he just didn't have a mean bone in his body. So anyhow, he was moaning and groaning. I'm like, I got that rosary, and I thought, well, Pappy, I just got this rosary. I'll go out and I'll grab it, and I'll pray for you. So that's what I did. Well, I sat there and I start praying the rosary, and he's moaning and groaning. Baby, the dog, starts howling and literally running from one end of the trailer to the other, howling. I've never seen a dog walk fast, much less run. And then the phone's ringing, just nonstop. And I'm sweating, and I'm trying to say this prayer. And finally, about midway through, I screamed out, quiet! Just listen to the words. Try to listen to the words. And as I continued on, things started settling down. He wasn't moaning as loud. Finally, the dog stops howling. The phone quits ringing. And I finally got to the end of the prayer, and it's all quiet. And Pappy looks up at me, and he says, "You are not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He said, "I am in no pain at all. I have absolutely no pain. I have not felt like this in years." I'm like, "Oh, Pappy, praise the Lord. I know something happened here." I said, "You might be cured. I don't know, but I know something happened here." So the next morning I go home, and the next morning I come back to check on him, and we had hired a lady to come in and cook and clean, but Pappy hadn't eaten for a few days because it was getting that bad. But I come in there, and there he is, sitting up in his bed, eating biscuits and gravies and sausage and eggs. We all talked about what had happened the night before, and just amazed, we're pretty happy about it, and like I said, I wasn't sure, maybe he was cured. I didn't know. I know something happened. Excuse me. So anyhow, from there, I go up and see my mom. As soon as I walk in, I hadn't talked to my mom yet about what had happened down Pappy's. As soon as I walked in, my mom says that she had been visiting our friend Mary Cross, who is a very older woman from our church. She was deep in her 90s, like 98. And I've known her all my life. Just a sweet woman. I love her. And my mom would go and visit her. And she had told Mom that she was going through her stuff and found something that she wanted me to have. She said, "Hang on, I go find it." So I'm like, "I wonder what this is." She comes back out, and she's got this rosary in her hand. This beautiful red rosary. And there's this little leather pouch with my name engraved on it, Anthony. Well, I was shocked. I mean, with what had happened just at Pappy's and everything been going on, I couldn't believe it. And of course, I got the lump in my throat, and my mom couldn't understand my reaction, but I said, "I just got to go." I said, "Tell Mary thanks, and I'll see you after a while." So I go out in the truck, and I break down. I thought, man, this is just no coincidence. So from that day forward, I started saying the rosary as much as possible and doing more research. Well, I had remembered that I live in Kentucky, and back in the late 80s, early 90s, in Falmouth, Kentucky, there was reports of the Virgin Mary appearing at a farm down there. I remember hearing about it at the time. It was really big news around here. I didn't know at the time if it was true or not, but in all truthfulness, I was afraid it was true, and that's why I didn't go. Because I was partying at the time, and I really didn't want to change my ways if it was true. But anyhow, fast forward to a few years ago now, I decided I would go there. And this is now getting the first of the year. And Pappy ended up getting worse, and he passed away. The day that I was getting ready to go to his funeral, I got a call that there was an incident with my mother, that they had found her outside, and this is January in Kentucky, and she'd been out there all night, and the bus driver found her, and she was literally frozen, but she wasn't dead. So of course I had to go straight to the emergency room, and they warmed her up and thawed her out, and she came back, and by the afternoon she was fine. But you could tell there was something wasn't quite right, So The church down there at Falmouth, they have church there on the 8th of every month, is what the Virgin Mary requested. Unless the 8th on a Sunday, then it's on a Saturday before. So I had planned on going there on February 8th and have my family talked into going with me. But it had snowed real bad and they actually canceled the service. In the interim, my mom had a little stroke and, excuse me again, had to rush her to the hospital. And the next morning I got a call from my sister that as they were transporting my mother, they dropped her on the floor and she went comatose. Of course, they won't admit it, but that's what happened. A nun told us this. But anyhow, so there was the decision of taking my mother off of life support. They said she was brain dead. So she lingered for a couple days, and all the family had gathered in her room. And I said, let's say the rosary. So I led us in a rosary. And right at the end of it, the very end, she passed away. And of course I was very sad, but I felt the presence of our mother, that she was there taking her. Everybody in the room felt it. It was terrible, but my mom, she wouldn't have it any other way. She did not want to be a vegetable. She was full of life, and she told me if she ever got like Pappy was, just to go ahead and put a pillar on her. I told her I would. I wouldn't have. But anyhow, the next month, it's March 8th, and me and my wife decided to go to Our Lady's Farm. That's the name of the church down there in Falmouth. And I didn't know the order of things, but I looked it up and they said the Mass is at 11:30 in the morning. So we get there, of course, 11:25. Well, they're finishing up the rosary. But actually how it works is there's a rosary at 11, Mass at 11:30, and then they'll have a message, and then a peace rosary after that. So anyhow, we went to the Mass. I thought it was awesome. I mean, it's an old barn they converted into a church. And it's called the Church of the Good Shepherd, which meant a lot to me because I've often prayed, Lord, save your sheep. So just that alone meant something. So anyhow, since I've been practicing the rosary, they also have a grotto where in a statue of Virgin Mary where our mother had appeared to the visionary. And then they got a gravel road that goes down and you go past the Stations of the Cross. And then there's 3 big crosses like a crucifixion site. The driveway circles around that. And then there's a statue of the sepulchre where Jesus was buried. And there's a kneeler down there where you can pray. So I told Tanya, I want to do a rosary here, you know, because that's what I've been wanting to do. So we say the rosary there at the grotto. And then we get done with that, and I said, well, let's go down over the hill and see this crucifixion site. I hadn't been down there before. We drive down there, and as soon as I got out of the truck, mind you, this is March in Kentucky, March 8th. Super cold, gray, kind of windy, gnarly day. Soon as I get out of the truck, overpowering smell of roses. I mean, it wasn't like, you think that's roses? It's like, roses, my gosh, it's just incredible. And I remembered that from my reading that was one of the things that can happen if the Virgin Mary's around you, is that you'll smell roses. Some people's rosaries will turn to gold, or you might even see her. So I turned to Tanya, I'm like, roses, roses. She's here, she's here. I couldn't believe it. I'm looking around. And we're out in this field. There's nothing else. all the plant life is brown dead, everything dead. It's kind of windy, and I couldn't believe it. My skeptical mind is thinking that maybe there's a machine doing this. I don't know, but that's what but it wasn't. And I even took my phone, tried to take cameras, just pictures, in case I could catch it on film. But then again, of course, when left there, is all emotional again. I don't know why that happens, but it seems like every time the Lord touches me, I get all emotional. But from that point on, I was hooked. I started saying the rosary every day, reading more and more about all the apparitions that have happened throughout the centuries. And if you read the message, whether it's 100, 200 years different, you can tell it's coming from the same source. So since then, I started saying the rosary, and I don't know if it'll work for you, but I tell you what, the Lord has blessed me left and right. I mean, it's just incredible. But that being said, the main thing in my life is to spread this word and to get people to see. Because it seems like it's very hard to get people to listen and see. It's like having a beautiful thing. You're like, just take a look at it, please. And they're like, yeah, okay, well, whatever, It's kind of hard. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Our Lady's Farm in Falmouth, Kentucky. So they have an old barn they've converted into a church. It's absolutely beautiful. Then they have the grotto. I think the property sits on over 100 acres, and there's walking trails. It's just a very nice place to go and pray and meditate. And of course, if you go down over the gravel driveway, you're going to go past the Stations of the Cross, and of course the crucifixion site with the 3 crosses and the statue of our Blessed Mother, and then a statue of the Holy Sepulchre. Another very huge item that is there, that I almost forgot to mention, is the healing water. She had told the visionaries where to dig, and they struck water, and it is healing water. If you go there, you got to make sure you get the right ones. There is regular water and there's healing water. And there's been all kinds of miraculous healings attributed to the healing water. It works. As far as whether you'll experience the smell of roses or your rosary turn to gold, or you may even see her. She said she's always there. And there's been lots of stories of the smelling of the roses and the apparitions. One quick story I'll share with you is a young couple, an older couple, were trying to get pregnant and just couldn't do it. And they went there to pray, and they went down to the site, they smelt the roses, and she became pregnant shortly thereafter. There's also a very nice picture. If I can share it with you, I will. But it's a picture of the front of the church. But if you look in the right top corner and you expand it, you can see our Blessed Mother on a cloud. It's unbelievable. She is there. She is there. You just have to go with the right heart and the right frame of mind, and you will encounter her in one way or another. As far as my original question, why do Catholics venerate and our Blessed Mother so extremely? It's because she appears. She's been appearing throughout history, and she appears to this day. She's been appearing to a group of young people in Medjugorje since the 80s, all the way up to the present. And you'll see on my next video what happened in Garabandal. And in many of these places that she has appeared through the centuries, that she will provide healing water, like in Lourdes. So That's why Catholics do it. That's why we do it. Is because she is the emissary between God and man. And as you read her messages, you will never see where she says to worship her. It's always leading you to her Son. And we know from reading the Bible, Jesus would not refuse his Blessed Mother anything. Just from a wedding at Cana, where he tells she tells him they're out of wine, and he says, "What do you want me to do? It's not my time yet." And she says, "Do whatever he tells you to do," because she knew she would do as asked. They are a team, and they are here to help us and lead us to the Lord. And as far as the Catholic Church, if you're like me and you've fallen away, I didn't like what happened through that whole sex scandal and all that and how it was handled. It was appalling. And I think it drove a lot of us away. But then when I think about myself, I've done some pretty gnarly stuff in my life. And God hasn't given up on me. So maybe give it another chance. And church is what you get out of it, what you put into it. I know a lot of these new wave Christian religions, and they're fine. And they got rock and roll playing, and it's all exciting. But one thing they don't have is communion, the host. Catholics believe that host is Jesus Christ, not a representation. That becomes Jesus. And if you receive communion in a state of grace, which means you don't have no sins, you went communion or confession, got all cleaned up, and you receive communion in a state of grace, you will physically feel it. You will feel it. It's an explosion of energy within you. So, if you're like me, you've fallen away, and you could hear that clock ticking down, getting louder all the time, you might want to give it another shot. Because we need you. We need all us Catholics to come back. This world's a mess. You would think that with all the apparitions and the messages, that they would be front page news. But the media downplays it or just doesn't report on it. And you know why. You know who controls the media. So, one of the very interesting things I think that our Blessed Mother said in Fatima and then again in Garabandal, the young girls that she was appearing to and speaking with, the young girl asked our mother, "Please take me with you now." And our mother said, "When you present yourself before God, your hands must be full of the good works that you have done for your brothers and sisters for the glory of God. And right now, your hands are empty," as she was talking to these young girls. So let us always remember that, my friends. Never miss an opportunity to do a good charitable deed or good work. And if you can't do that, say a good prayer for somebody else. There's always time to do something good. Never miss the opportunity. Every day is a gift from God, and when you're at my age, you know how quick time goes by. It was just yesterday I was 20, and I was 40. Now I'm 60. Oh my gosh. So it's fourth quarter time. Time to play hard and try to win the big game and get in there for eternity. So I hope you've gotten something out of this video. Like I said, don't take my word for it. Hopefully it inspired you to do your own research. The evidence is overwhelming. Just do some research. You will be amazed of everything that's happened and everything that's went on. And if you liked my last video, you're going to love my next one on Garabandal. It's a doozy. I mean, it'll literally knock your socks off. So before you watch it, go ahead and take your shoes off. That way your socks ain't all balled up in the toe of your shoe. I don't know why I think that's funny, but I do. Anyhow, God bless you. God bless your family. And I hope to see you real soon.